Greeting friends from Bethlehem, greeting from the Church of the Nativity, greetings from the Holy Land. Behind me, this is the place where our Lord Jesus has been born in a grotto, in the most humble place the world had ever known 2,000 years ago. It's there where people just before his birth were waiting for signs from God to tell them about the good news. The shepherds were just in the field, taking their sheep and grazing in that field in the time of the spring. They were waiting for the angels to come to tell them the great news ever that the Lord has been born there. Just a year after that, the Magi came after seeing the star, coming and presenting all the presents of Jesus with the gifts of the gold, the myrrh, and the frankincense. Everyone celebrated Jesus in their own way, and everyone was expecting the coming of Jesus, but how God revealed this coming was in a very much special way indeed. If we go back to the Old Testament time, we know that there are different episodes in the Bible that connect us with the coming of Jesus and tell us how people celebrated the coming of Jesus. At first, we started by the coming of David, where David has been born in Bethlehem, anointed by Samuel, and the one that from his lineage, Jesus would come. We remember Bethlehem by the time of Jacob, who entered the land here, and his beloved wife Rachel actually died giving the birth to Benjamin. And at the same time, we celebrate the amazing, beautiful memory of Ruth, who that woman, with her greatness, actually became the great-grandmother of King David. If we go to those people, if we understand their stories, we see how much sadness they had to go. We see how much struggle they had to go. But nonetheless, it's through the struggle that we find the happiness, that we find the glory behind these great messages. And this would be exactly the birth of Jesus. The birth of Jesus didn't come just in a normal episode. It's come in a time under Roman occupation. It's come in a time of revolution. It's come in a time where people were expecting the coming of a political Messiah who would bring back justice to the locals. But nonetheless, things were actually quite different from the perspective of Jesus and from the perspective of the Bible. It's there that Jesus came, not only for a kingdom for a certain people, but he came for everyone in the globe. The birth of Jesus was in the most complicated political landscape. He was born 2,000 years ago, in the time of the Roman occupation, in the time of Emperor Augustus, and in the time of the most craziest king the land of Judea had ever known, that is the King Herod. It is there during this moment that Jesus' birth was taking place. It was taking place in a humble place, in a cave, in a grotto, in a place where actually is used to feed the animals. However, people were celebrating the happy news and the good news. God was giving them signs from heaven or from the star to tell them about the birth of the Messiah. The shepherds were celebrating everything just in the spring, where the great angels came and telling them about the good news that Jesus has been born in Bethlehem. The Magi were waiting for another signal that's coming from the sky, just a single star to tell them about the birth of Jesus. Everyone was happy, despite the fact that everyone was extremely afraid living under an occupation. So after 2,000 years, we ask today the question, how do we prepare ourselves for Jesus' second coming? Well, if we go back in time, if we go back 2,000 years ago, people were preparing themselves, looking at the signs in the sky, in the field, and let's do this as today. However, there's one thing we need to add to this recipe. We need to keep joy in our heart. We need to keep singing inside our heart, asking for peace, asking for justice, and asking for eternal love, asking for this eternal water that Jesus was telling us about, that it is only through him that we can go into that kingdom of heaven.